All right, diving in today, we've got Patrick Bet-David's Your Next 5 Moves. We've heard you. You want knowledge, fast, you love those light bulb moments, and no one wants to drown in information.
Exactly. Got to cut through the noise, right?
Totally. So we're going straight to the heart of it, strategic thinking, the kind that makes a difference, especially if you're the type who likes to be in the know but doesn't want all the fluff.
Sounds like our kind of deep dive.
For sure. Bet-David's got this framework for seeing what's coming down the line in business, life, you name it. That's what we're unpacking today.
And he kicks it off with this idea of thinking ahead. Uses Magnus Carlsen, the chess grandmaster, the guy who sees like 15 moves ahead.
Oh, yeah. Incredible.
But Bet-David says, for most of us, running businesses, just living our lives, 5 moves is the sweet spot. Practical way to see what's coming, steer things in the right direction, and not get stuck overthinking every little detail.
Makes sense. So the whole book, it's built around mastering these 5 moves.
You got it.
Right. So this isn't just some theory, right? Bet-David's got this whole backstory that kind of shapes how he sees things. He talks about leaving Iran during the war, coming to the U.S., building a career from scratch.
Oh, I know that part. Talk about facing uncertainty. That'll build some serious resilience.
Absolutely. That's what he says. Those early experiences, facing the unknown, it built this tolerance for adversity that's kind of baked into his strategic thinking now.
Which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he's super clear. This isn't just for a select few. He says these principles, this whole your next 5 moves thing, it's for anyone, wherever you're at. Just starting out, leading a team, happy where you are.
So it's more about a mindset shift.
Exactly. Ditching that short-term thinking, looking at things more strategically, thinking several steps ahead. That's the core idea.
Love it. Okay, so move number 1, understanding your desires and making cane your fuel. It starts with this really basic but really huge question.
Let me guess.
Who do you want to be?
Nailed it. And he says that should be the engine driving your strategy, your sense of urgency, everything. He even points out how a lot of advisors, they just assume everyone wants the same things.
Yeah, cookie cutter approach. Doesn't work.
Nope. Bet-David says real strategy, it starts with knowing yourself, like really knowing yourself.
And that's not always easy.
No, it's deep stuff.
Yeah.
He gives these contrasting examples, right? Like, think about the difference between wanting to build a small, successful local business.
Right, your own little empire.
Versus, wanting to totally disrupt a whole industry. Those are different beasts.
Completely different levels of commitment.
Right. Your answer to who do you want to be, it sets the bar for how much you're willing to put in, how hard you're willing to push.
And that ties directly into this idea of pain being inevitable part of the journey. But the trick is turning that pain into something that drives you.
Fuel, yeah. Bet-David talks about getting passed over for a promotion, not just like a little thing, but a moment where he was like, nope, I'm not letting someone else decide my future. It's so powerful, right? That realization that, yeah, setbacks happen, disappointments happen, but you can use that sting to push you forward.
He connects it to people like Elon Musk, right? Early struggles, tons of criticism, but look at him now.
Exactly. Barbara Corcoran getting rejected left and right when she was starting out in real estate. Even Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team.
Seriously.
Seriously. But they all took those knocks, those painful experiences, and turned them into fuel. Each in their own way, they channeled it.
And it's not just about dealing with personal setbacks, right?
Right.
He talks about actually using haters, the doubters, as extra fuel.
Oh, yeah, that part's wild. He tells this story about a high school guidance counselor. Even after he'd found some success, this counselor still thought he wouldn't amount to much.
Wow.
Can you imagine? But it just shows you, even those negative opinions, you can twist them, use them to prove them wrong.
I guess it's about where you choose to focus your energy.
Totally. He's got another story, really powerful one, about a stranger making a comment when he was worried sick about his dad's health, something about needing money for better health care. And he describes it as this turning point, like that pain became this raw driving force.
So he used that to fuel his success, to provide for his family.
Yeah, to build the life he wanted, a life with purpose. And it's a good reminder that those tough moments, they can break you or they can make you. It's about how you choose to see them.
All right, on to move 2, the ability to reason and process issues. So now we're moving from internal drive to how we navigate the world, make decisions. And he starts with this idea of living in your future truth.
Okay, that sounds kind of mystical.
It is, but also very practical. Think of it like you're acting now as the successful version of yourself would act. Like your future success is already a done deal.
So fake it till you make it.
Kind of, but more about aligning your actions with your future self. He uses Thomas J. Watson, the IBM founder, as an example. From the get-go, Watson had this crystal clear vision of what a complete IBM would look like.
So he was working backwards from that vision.
Exactly. He figured out how IBM needed to operate in the present to achieve that future. Another example, JFK wanting to put a man on the moon within a decade. That was a huge, audacious goal, a future truth that inspired action and ultimately became reality.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So it's about embodying your aspirations, not just dreaming about them.
Exactly. And to help with that, Bet David talks about using heroes, visual reminders. He calls it the "what would hero do" concept.
I like that. So it's about finding those people you admire, whether it's Bezos for building an empire, Buffett for investing, Oprah for media domination.
And asking yourself, what would they do in this situation?
Right. Even just having their pictures around it can keep you focused, make you think differently.
Cool. Now, for some serious self-reflection, he talks about this personal identity audit.
Yeah, that one's intense.
It's basically a set of questions designed for some deep self-discovery. Bet David actually did this himself, answered like 83 questions, all from a friend during a time when he was feeling lost.
83 questions. That's a lot of introspection.
He says he spent hours alone really digging into those questions. And it was transformative. It forced him to face his weaknesses, ultimately led to greater self-acceptance.
Sounds like a worthwhile exercise, even if it's a bit uncomfortable.
Definitely. Now, move 2 isn't all about looking inward. It also emphasizes embracing math, using this thing called the investment time return formula, or ITR.
Okay, break that down for me.
Basically, it's about factoring in both the potential financial return and the time it'll take to achieve it. It's about making smart decisions, not just emotional ones.
So, less gut feeling, more calculation.
Exactly. Calculate the payback period, the break-even point, understand the full picture, money and time invested.
So it's about making informed decisions. Got it. What else?
Another concept, solve for X, which is all about tackling complex problems.
Ooh, that's intriguing. Like a detective.
Exactly. Break down the problem just like a math equation and figure out the root cause, the X. Once you know that, you can find the solution.
Makes sense. Like that example in the book, the person who's always tired and realizes it's their diet. Or when Bet David breaks down this huge lawsuit step by step.
Exactly. It's about taking a methodical approach, isolating the core issue.
Love it. Super practical.
Now, he also stresses the importance of offering a strong benefits program to attract talent. But it's not just about salary and the usual perks, is it?
No, it goes way deeper. He talks about focusing on what you can give to others, not just what you can get from them.
So building a track record of positive impact.
Exactly. A resume of people whose lives are better because of their connection to you. That kind of thinking attracts the right kind of people.
And speaking of people, he emphasizes building a strong inner circle, getting diverse counsel. He even uses the analogy of a consigliere, like from the mob.
Yeah, kind of unexpected, right? But he's making the point about having trusted advisors, people who can offer wise, objective guidance. He even intentionally brings people with completely opposite views into meetings.
Oh, wow, so they can debate issues.
Yeah, he believes that clash of ideas leads to a deeper understanding, better decisions.
So it's about getting multiple perspectives.
Exactly. But then he throws in the Donnie Brasco story.
Oh, right, the undercover FBI agent who infiltrated the mafia.
Yeah, a reminder that trust, it's got to be earned. Do your due diligence no matter how trustworthy someone seems.
Even the mafia got tricked.
It happens. But David says, take time to get to know people, ask tough questions, really observe them before you give them any real responsibility.
So trust but verify, as they say.
Always.
All right, moving on to move 3, understanding others to build the right team. This is where it gets into the people side of things, and he starts with this idea of golden handcuffs.
Interesting term.
Right. It's about giving key employees equity in the company, but they earn it over time.
Ah, so it's a vesting schedule.
Yep. The idea is to make them think like owners, not just employees. Aligns their interests with the company's long-term success.
Makes sense. Incentivizes commitment, keeps people around.
Exactly. Then he gets into the tough stuff, firing people. And he emphasizes doing it gently but decisively.
Yeah, nobody likes that conversation.
Nope. But he compares it to breaking up with someone. Be direct, but don't be cruel, don't drag it out.
Be respectful.
Exactly. He even tells a story about helping a former assistant pursue his passion for surfing after he let him go.
Nice. Compassionate, but still making the tough call.
Right. And he balances that with this idea that You can't compromise on your principles. If someone's going rogue, you gotta act.
Gotta maintain those standards.
What else? He introduces this concept of radical transparency. Sounds kind of intense.
It is, but he actually implemented it in his own company, even though his team was nervous about it.
So what does it actually look like in practice?
Open and honest communication, but always respectful. He says it might lead to some uncomfortable conversations, but it ultimately builds trust.
So honesty with tact.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And he says the higher up you go as a leader, the more important integrity and transparency become.
Couldn't agree more. Now, thinking ahead also applies to our teams. And he talks about contingency planning for personnel.
So what happens if someone leaves?
Exactly. He stresses the importance of cross-training, making sure people can step into different roles, and always be looking for new talent, just in case.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Always. Now, this one might seem counterintuitive, but he talks about the benefits of friction.
Wait, friction, like conflict.
Yeah, healthy conflict, constructive disagreement. He argues is actually good for growth, stimulates creativity.
Interesting. Like how iron sharpens iron.
Exactly. He even uses the analogy of a marriage without any arguments, saying it could lead to stagnation.
I see his point.
He also talks about intentionally creating positive friction by publicly praising employees, which can motivate others.
Makes sense. Like a ripple effect.
For sure. And this leads into the importance of company culture core principles. He puts a big emphasis on this.
Yeah, establishing values, communicating them clearly, living by them consistently.
He even compares it to religious doctrine.
Wow, that's strong.
And he uses Microsoft as an example of how company culture can evolve over time.
It's a living thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, going beyond employees, he talks about planning for potential difficulties in all relationships, personal and professional.
So being prepared for the tough stuff.
Exactly. Have the tough conversations up front. Use things like prenups and business contracts to clarify things.
Set expectations from the start.
Yep. He even shares his own experience of talking about this stuff with his wife before they got married.
Smart move.
Totally. And this leads to the point of understanding individual motivations. He says we need to move beyond the golden rule, treat people how they want to be treated.
The platinum rule.
Exactly. He even talks about love languages in a professional setting.
Wait, like those different ways people express and receive love.
Yep. He outlines 9 specific ones for entrepreneurs to use with their teams. Things like expressing that you need them, showing genuine interest in their goals.
So tailored appreciation, basically.
Spot on. Now, he also talks about what it really means to be a CEO. Says it's more than just a title.
So it's about earning the respect.
Exactly. He says true CEO authority comes from being recognized by others, not just appointing yourself.
Leading by example.
Yep. He reflects on his own early struggles as a CEO and how important it was for him to seek mentors, learn the ropes.
Always be learning.
Always. Then he dives into strategic capitalization, which is all about how you fund your business growth.
So where do you get the money?
Right. Do you go for big outside investments early on, which means giving up some control, or do you grow more slowly, organically, and keep full ownership?
Tough choices.
He compares different approaches, like Alibaba going for early investment versus companies that chose slower, organic growth. And he teases 10 questions you should ask yourself before seeking funding.
Definitely something to think about. What else?
The last part of Move 3 is about achieving exponential growth. It goes beyond just linear, steady growth.
So like hockey stick growth.
Exactly. He gives examples like Bally Total Fitnesses, zero down payment memberships, Amazon Prime, these innovative ideas that led to massive expansion.
Game changers.
Totally. He talks about strategically allocating time between those steady, linear activities and the potentially game-changing exponential ones.
So balance is key.
Always. All right, we've covered a lot with the first 3 moves. Let's move on to move 4, mastering strategy to scale. And he starts with reducing the time it takes to get things done.
Speed is key, right?
He's big on that. He says aim for speed and efficiency without sacrificing quality. He uses examples like Toyota, how they solve problems right on the assembly line, and McDonald's, obsessed with fast food delivery.
Makes sense. Time is money.
He even outlines a 7-step system for compressing timelines and talks about the importance of timing your decisions right.
Strategic timing.
Yep. Now, balancing that need for speed is a warning about excessive overhead.
Oh, right. Keeping those costs in check.
He tells the story about a financial marketing firm that went all out on a fancy office space, but it almost sank the business.
Style over substance.
Exactly. He stresses aligning your costs with your revenue, avoiding unnecessary spending.
Keep it lean.
For sure. And he emphasizes having a long-term vision, resisting those short-sighted gains.
Playing the long game.
Yep. He contrasts Warren Buffett's patient approach with examples of people who chased quick profits, did unethical things, and ultimately failed.
Shortcuts rarely pay off in the long run.
Truth. And then he lays out the 5 deadly sins of entrepreneurs.
Ooh, sound ominous.
It is. Being too cheap or spending recklessly, letting the wrong people influence you, having a royalty mentality, refusing to adapt, and constantly comparing yourself to others.
Recipes for disaster.
Pretty much, he says these can really hold you back.
So self-awareness is key again.
Always. Interestingly, he also talks about the downside of speed. So even though he's all about efficiency, he warns about growing too fast.
How so?
He says it can be tempting to chase easy money, take unethical shortcuts.
So staying true to your values is important.
Absolutely. And the last part of Move 4 is about managing chaos, establishing systems.
So bringing order to the chaos.
Exactly. He says entrepreneurship, especially rapid growth, it inherently has some chaos. But having systems helps you track progress, manage the unknowns, and stay stable.
Systems as a safety net.
I like that. All right, last one, Move 5. Making momentum your friend and staying paranoid. Sounds kind of intense, right?
A little bit, but also kind of exciting.
It is. So first up, he stresses the need for systems to track everything in your business.
Data is king, right?
Absolutely. He says use data to find those inefficiencies, spot trends. He even tells a story about using baseball cards with agent stats to boost sales and deal with seasonal dips.
Creative.
Totally. And he emphasizes looking beyond just the surface numbers, digging into the qualitative stuff, talking to people, getting feedback.
Getting the full picture.
Exactly. Now, this staying paranoid part is where it gets interesting. He's drawing a parallel to Andy Grove, the former Intel CEO.
Didn't Grove have that whole only the paranoid survive philosophy?
Yeah, that's the one. Bet David's saying in business, there's no real peace. You got to be vigilant, always scanning for threats, new technologies, competitors, internal weaknesses.
They'll never get complacent.
Exactly. He points to the crazy turnover in the Fortune 500 since 1955, a constant reminder that things change.
Makes you think. So how do you stay sane with all this paranoia?
He gives 3 strategies. First, make friends with Murphy's Law.
Expect the unexpected.
Right. Anticipate the worst-case scenarios, have plans in place. Second, accept losses. Don't throw good money after bad.
Cut your losses.
And third, when things get crazy, identify your next 3 steps. Get back in control.
Love those practical tips.
Me too. Now, another key to staying ahead, building strategic alliances.
Even with competitors.
He says yes. It can give you huge leverage. He uses Apple teaming up with Microsoft when Apple was struggling, and Amazon partnering with Toys R Us way back when.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Kind of. It's about finding common ground, even with rivals.
Makes sense. What else?
Lifelong learning. He brings it back again in Move 5, emphasizing seeking wisdom from others.
Never stop learning.
Exactly. He says go from arrogance to a thirst for knowledge. He even has this framework for evaluating mentors, theory, witness, application.
TWA. So you want someone who not only knows stuff, but has done stuff and can show you how.
Exactly. Experience matters.
Big time.
Now, he also talks about the David versus Goliath scenario, how a smaller company can compete with a giant.
That's a tough one.
He says it's about knowing your weaknesses, but also exploiting their weaknesses. Big companies often get complacent.
So exploit their blind spots.
Exactly. He also says be bold, even a little shameless with your self-promotion, and align your message with your long-term vision.
Makes sense. Get your name out there.
For sure. Now, to stay focused, he talks about turning off the noise and cutting the fat.
So eliminating distractions.
Yes. Minimize the time you spend on unproductive activities, negative influences, stuff that doesn't move the needle. He says we waste a lot of time without realizing it.
Time is precious.
All right, 2 last things in Move 5. Incremental growth and learning from mobsters.
Wait, mobsters?
Yeah. He actually says there are valuable lessons to be learned from organized crime.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Specifically, he's talking about sales, negotiation, influence. He says prepare thoroughly for meetings, understand people's motivations, fear, greed, saving face.
Interesting.
And always over-deliver, build a reputation for exceeding expectations.
Smart.
He also talks about selling with conviction, transferring that feeling to the other person. And with negotiation, he says leverage is key, but long-term partnerships are more valuable than quick wins.
So much good stuff in there.
Right. Now, the book wraps up with this idea of cultivating power and staying battle-tested. It's like the culmination of all 5 moves.
Reaching that next level.
He emphasizes that lasting success, it's a constant challenge. Having options, that's power.
Options give you flexibility.
Exactly. And he emphasizes helping others before asking for anything in return.
Before you get.
Yep. Then he lays out a simple formula for gaining power. Outwork, out-improve, out-strategize, outlast.
Love it.
He also emphasizes learning from others, even when you're already successful, and constantly pushing yourself and your team.
Continuous improvement.
Yes. And he says, have a mission bigger than just making money. Be ready for chaos, for the fight. The rewards come from fighting for something meaningful, living in line with your future truth.
Powerful stuff.
So, to bring it all together, your next 5 moves is about thinking ahead, understanding yourself, processing information, building the right team, and staying adaptable.
It's a roadmap for navigating life and business, making intentional choices.
And for you, our listener, we hope this has given you some valuable takeaways, those aha moments, without overloading you.
We try to keep it concise and insightful.
Now, as you go about your day, think about that question. Who do you really want to be? Let that guide your next 5 moves. What's one small step you can take today to start thinking more strategically?
And one last thought. Remember what David said, peace in business is an illusion. So, what are your vulnerabilities? What proactive moves can you make to stay ahead of the curve? Stay paranoid, my friend.
Food for thought.
Until next time.